Good day. I'm Dr. Jerry Wallace. I'm a new professor here at Point University starting the fall of 2022, and I'm excited about being able to share with you today the leadership journey. First, let me tell you a little bit about myself. Prior to becoming a professor, I was a serial entrepreneur for 35 years, primarily in the construction development business, having started and sold 3 different construction companies, the largest one doing revenues at $35 million, also 3 different development businesses, as well as starting and selling a bank. So I've had various experiences in entrepreneurship, and I loved every moment of it. But I have to tell you, what prepared me for that was having a growth mindset. A growth mindset versus a fixed mindset, where you think everything is going to limit your growth versus allowing everything as an opportunity to expand your growth. Growth mindset was written really well by Dr. Carol Dweck. She is a Stanford psychologist who wrote this book, Mindset, How You Can Learn to Fulfill Your Potential. And it's about having a mindset that's totally open and available to all life's opportunities, whether that be educational or other challenges in your life. Let me tell you a little bit more about my personal journey. I came from a large family. My parents couldn't afford to send me to college. So a week after high school graduation, I was in the United States Army. And for 4 years, I embraced that experience in every way I possibly could, to include attending many leadership schools and other type experiences that prepared me for my college experience. Fortunately, I had the GI Bill. So once I got out of the United States Army, 4 years thereafter, I was on my collegiate journey, and I embraced that experience as well. My college experience, as well as all the relevant experience I acquired thereafter, was part of the growth mindset that allowed me to embrace all these different opportunities. Even after I started my very first business, I was raising a family. I was going to night school, working on my MBA. It took me 5 years actually to complete through the University of South Florida. I always believed in continuing the investment in my future, which meant going way beyond just education. It was embracing all the experiences in life that I had, and made me a real leadership junkie. So I found myself constantly in books reading about how to improve my leadership skill set. So what were my lessons learned during my journey? Well, they were many various lessons, but I can't emphasize enough that having a growth mindset was foundational. It changed my perspective on any type of challenge that came along my way. It gave me a perspective that no matter how tough the situation, there was a lesson to be learned. Even the meaning of failure took on a new perspective because I could grow through any of those experiences. I accepted my nature as well as embraced the nurturing of those experiences. All of us are born with certain personality traits. This is our nature. And again, these are gifts from above that we need to expound upon. But at the same token, we're given challenges and experiences in life that we can also grow and develop along the way. The key is having this growth mindset. Developing virtues is probably one of the greatest ways of growing this mindset for your future. It provides the strongest foundation. With such, I like to discuss 4 primary virtues that I think will help you in developing this growth mindset. The first virtue I want to talk about is duty and responsibility. We all serve a higher authority than ourselves. For some, it's God. For others, country. For others, it's family. But regardless, we need to regard this responsibility as a moral obligation and be able to live up to it. I think of the parable that Jesus told in Matthew 25:14 through 30, which is considered the parable of the talents. Now, talent at that time was actually property, but I love how the Bible calls this a talent because all of us are blessed with certain talents and abilities. So whether it be a talent or ability and or property, and still it's an investment into our future. And that's the way we really need to look at these things. But if you read the story is about a master who had 3 servants. And before he left on a long journey, he gave all 3 servants talents according to their abilities. This is important to highlight, according to abilities, because all of us are given certain abilities, and some of us more, some of us less. The master gave his 3 servants 1, he gave 5 talents. The second one, he gave 2 talents. And the third one, he gave 1 talent. After a duration of time, he came back and met with each of these servants. The first one came back and told the master he had doubled the 5 talents to 10. And of course, the master said, "Well and done, good, faithful servant. You will be given more responsibility." The second servant came back and said he had doubled his 2 talents and made a total of 4. The master said, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You will be given more responsibility." The third servant, who had only 1 talent, came back and said he was fearful of the master and what would happen to him if he lost his 1 talent. So he went and buried it. The master was very upset and said, "Servant, you could have at least put that 1 talent in the bank and drawn interest on it." Then the master said to take the 1 talent that the third servant had and give it to the servant who had 10 talents. And then he said in verse 29, "To those who use well what they have been given, even more will be given to them. They will have an abundance." And this is really the parable of the talents. We're all given so much, and we are given the opportunity to make more of that. And that's not only because of how we were and what we were born into, but it's also how we nurture our life thereafter. So the issue here is not how much we've been given, but how do we use what we have been given? We all have been given time, talents, and treasure. And we need to figure out how best to use these because we are strictly caretakers of these resources. Our reward depends on our efforts, and those efforts are truly proportional to the rewards that are given. Character development must become a priority to you. That's why they call it self-improvement, because no one else will do it for you. The second virtue of the 4 I like to discuss is integrity and dependability. We need to be consistent with our values, even when no one else is watching. We need to practice what we preach. We need to lead by example, always being honest and respectful. We need to prioritize it now because it's foundational, and you need to start growing in this area. When I think of historical examples of integrity and dependability, I think of President Abraham Lincoln. He was called Honest Abe for a reason. Not everyone agreed with him, but they knew that his integrity was always through and through. Even though he failed in business twice and lost 8 different elections, Honest Abe never gave up. He never accepted failure. He had a self-drive that allowed him, even though all he had was his grade school education, he studied law books till finally he passed the bar exam. He was forthright in his objectives during the Civil War. He was resilient to its final completion. And he, in a big fashion, saved our Union. The third virtue I want to discuss is resourcefulness. This is overcoming challenges and difficulties, sometimes even being clever to look for another angle to overcome. As working students, you're doing this presently. As you educate yourself while working jobs, maybe even raising families, you're learning at present time management skills. But I don't like calling it time management because all of us are given the same 24 hours a day. It's really self-management. When you learn to manage yourself through the obstacles of going through and getting your education, raising family, working, etc., you're learning self-discipline. So that self-management is so important. It'll come back to benefit you so much in future years. But when I think about historical examples of resourcefulness, I think of Thomas Edison. Thomas Edison said, "Genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration." This really captures the ingredients of success, and it's truly hard work. Edison made 1,000 unacceptable attempts at inventing the light bulb. His perspective was never failure, but advancement and growth. He would say, "I didn't fail 1,000 times to invent the light bulb. The invention of the light bulb just required 1,000 steps." The fourth and final virtue I'd like to discuss is the virtue of perseverance. Perseverance is single-mindedness. It's keeping the bigger picture in front of yourself and never losing hope. When I think of perseverance, I think of Colonel Harlan Sanders. Colonel Sanders, of course, is famous for Kentucky Fried Chicken. He had the 11 secret ingredients that went into Kentucky Fried Chicken, but his real ingredients that made him successful was ingredients of perseverance. He was 60 years old when he was forced to shut down his restaurant because of a highway coming through, and he decided to retire. He was living off $105 a month of Social Security. when at age 65, he decided it was time to make a comeback. He decided that he was to find a way to franchise his chicken. He would go in his car and travel all over the country with his pressure cooker, selling people on his secret 11 ingredients, herbs that made up Kentucky Fried Chicken. Legend has it that he heard 1,009 no's before he ever heard a yes. And by 1964, he had developed 600 franchises. He ended up selling them in 1964 for $2 million, which is equivalent to $15 million today. At his death, at age 90, Kentucky Fried Chicken at that time had over 6,000 franchises throughout the world. So in conclusion, I would tell you that each of these virtues is a large stone in this foundation of leadership. To be inspired, to grow in your personal journey of leadership, the best ways to do that, I would tell you, are the following takeaways. 1, embrace and learn from your present opportunities and challenges, and make sure you grow in them. 2, envision brighter tomorrows. Be positive and proactive and believe in yourself. 3, never stop growing, or else you may be left behind. And finally, be a person of character, because that will eventually define you. I trust that you have received some real takeaways from our time together. Thank you for choosing Point University, and God bless.